You check your phone and see the time, 3:33 again, the same time you noticed yesterday and the day before that. Or you're walking down the street thinking about an old friend and suddenly their name appears on a billboard right in front of you. Maybe you've been seeing butterflies everywhere on your morning walk, on a stranger's shirt, or even in a dream last night. And something inside whispers, "This means something." But then logic takes over. You brush it off as mere chance, a result of your mind's tendency to find patterns where none exist. Statistical probability, you tell yourself. But here's something they don't tell you. What you call coincidence isn't a coincidence at all. It's not randomness, it's not just your brain playing tricks. It's synchronicity, and synchronicity is the language of reality speaking directly to you. Synchronicity is reality's way of communicating with you in a symbolic language that most people have completely forgotten how to understand. This isn't about mysticism for the sake of mysticism. It's about understanding the fundamental architecture of existence itself, something Carl Jung spent his life trying to decode, and what quantum science is now starting to validate through experimental data. When you begin to understand synchronicity, it will change the way you view life, yourself, and your place in the world. It's not just a random occurrence, but a key to navigating your existence in a more conscious, empowered way. What you're experiencing is not some whimsical or magical force. It's a tangible phenomenon that has been guiding you all along. And once you grasp its meaning, everything you thought you knew about life begins to shift. Most people go through life unaware of this deep conversation between themselves and the universe. They see the signs, dismiss them as coincidence, and move on. They encounter the most sophisticated guidance system in existence and label it as mere timing. Nothing more. But once you learn to decode this symbolic language, everything changes. You stop being someone that life happens to and begin to consciously shape your life with intention and awareness. Now, let's dig deeper into this idea. When most people first start recognizing synchronicity, they make a critical mistake. They assume it's all about desire fulfillment. They think, "I must be vibrating correctly because I keep seeing signs that align with my dreams." But then, confusion sets in when things don't play out as expected. They see the number 555 everywhere, thinking it's a sign of a breakthrough, only to have the opportunity slip away or the relationship fall apart. And they conclude, synchronicity is just wishful thinking, it's not real. But here's the truth that no one wants to admit. Synchronicity isn't a validation machine. It's not the universe's way of endorsing your desires. It's not a cosmic approval stamp confirming that you're on the right track. It's a reflection, a pure, unfiltered reflection. And reflections don't show you what you want to see, they reveal what you're actually emanating. They reflect your inner state, not your wishes or hopes. Carl Jung's exploration of synchronicity wasn't some mystical quest for answers. It was an investigation into how the unconscious mind communicates with us. He found something groundbreaking. His patients experienced meaningful external events precisely during times of deep internal transformation. When unconscious material was ready to surface and be integrated into their awareness, the external world provided corresponding symbolic events. One of his patients dreamed of a golden scarab, a symbol of transformation and rebirth. The next day, during their session, a scarab beetle virtually impossible to find in Switzerland struck the therapy room window. Jung caught it and presented it to his patient. This moment shattered her intellectual defenses, cracking open a deeper recognition she had been resisting. This synchronicity wasn't arbitrary. It was surgically precise, manifesting at the exact moment her consciousness was ready to make the leap. The timing was perfect. The symbol was exactly what her psyche required to complete her internal evolution. Jung didn't call these coincidences meaningless or random. He called them meaningful because the significance was calibrated to the individual's internal condition. The timing synchronized with their psychological growth. The symbol matched their unconscious architecture. This is where people misunderstand synchronicity. They believe it's about receiving what they want, a sign that validates their desires. But in reality, synchronicity is about revealing what is alive inside you. It's about showing you what's resonating within you. It's a constant reflection of your inner state. When you see repeating numbers like 111 and you feel a surge of possibility, it's not the universe making promises to you. It's your own energy field aligning with a higher vibrational state, and reality is confirming that alignment. Your consciousness is briefly harmonized with the universe, and synchronicity serves as a mirror of that alignment. When you think of someone just before they contact you, that's not supernatural. That's the intersection of electromagnetic fields in resonance. Your neural patterns synchronize with theirs. The same happens when you meet someone you feel an instant connection with. Your energies are in tune. But here's where synchronicity can be uncomfortable. It doesn't just reflect the positive aspects of your inner world, it also reflects your blocks, fears, and fragmentation. You continue to encounter the same destructive relational patterns. That's not bad luck. It's synchronicity showing you an unintegrated frequency you're still broadcasting. It's information. It's your reality trying to show you where your inner coherence is disrupted. You miss opportunities because the timing is always just off. That's not cruelty. That's feedback. You're oscillating out of phase with your desires. And when you begin to understand this, you stop blaming fate. You start to take ownership of your own frequency. You realize that your internal state has a direct impact on what happens externally. True synchronicity work isn't about collecting signs that validate your hopes or fantasies. It's about being radically honest with what the mirror is showing you. It's about being real with yourself. The more you embrace the reflection, the clearer the guidance becomes. Once you stop resisting what's being shown to you, synchronicities will begin to intensify. They will become more frequent, specific, and meaningful. The universe has been transmitting its guidance all along, but you've been blocking it with denial and confusion. Now that you're open to the reflection, you'll receive true guidance, not comforting messages, but the guidance you need to grow. Think about the synchronicities you've rejected in the past because they didn't fit your preferred narrative. Which recurring patterns have you labeled as bad luck? They weren't punishments. They were invitations. Invitations to shift your frequency, to integrate what remains unhealed, to align with the truth rather than the illusion you've been clinging to. When you stop fighting the reflection, reality begins to collaborate with you in ways that will alter your perception of what's possible. You'll begin to see how deeply intertwined your inner world is with your outer world. As your internal coherence strengthens, so will your experience of synchronicity. The more aligned you become with your truth, the more reality responds in kind. Now let's dive into how quantum physics has helped validate this entire concept. For decades, synchronicity was dismissed as pseudoscience, a misunderstanding of random events. It was seen as a tendency to perceive meaningful patterns in the randomness of life. But with the advent of quantum physics, everything changed. When quantum physicists began to study subatomic particles, they discovered something that shattered the classical model of reality. These particles don't exist in definite states before observation. Instead, they exist as probability waves, multiple potential configurations simultaneously. It's only when a conscious observer measures these particles that they collapse into a singular, definite state. This phenomenon, known as the observer effect, has been confirmed through thousands of experiments. It shows that your observation, your conscious attention, literally influences physical outcomes. This isn't metaphorical, it's literal. Your awareness plays an active role in shaping reality. So, if consciousness collapses probability waves and participates in manifesting reality, then reality is not a static, pre-existing thing you navigate. It's an interactive field that you co-create through your observations. And synchronicity isn't an anomaly within this field. It's a fundamental feature of how the field operates. Now consider this. Your consciousness isn't confined to your brain. For generations, we've been taught that consciousness is simply a byproduct of the brain's activity. But researchers like Jacobo Grinberg challenge that idea. Grinberg's work in the neuronal field suggests that consciousness is not generated by the brain, but accessed through it. The brain acts as an antenna that tunes into a broader field of awareness beyond the physical realm. Grinberg's experiments demonstrated that two individuals in deep meditative coherence could synchronize their neural patterns, even if they were in completely separate rooms. No physical connection, no sensory communication, just two consciousness fields resonating in unified coherence. What does this mean for you? It means that synchronicity is not just random events. It's the natural order of an interconnected universe where your consciousness interacts with everything around you. Your inner state directly influences the external world, and that's what synchronicity reveals. The key to understanding synchronicity lies in the awareness that it's not just about receiving signs that affirm your desires. It's about recognizing what's happening beneath the surface, understanding the frequency you're broadcasting, and adjusting it to align with the life you want to create. Once you start seeing synchronicity as a mirror reflecting not just your wishes, but your truth, you'll begin to see how deeply connected you are to everything around you. The universe isn't just random, it's responsive, interactive, and deeply intelligent. By aligning with your true essence, you can navigate life in harmony with the universe, shaping your experience with greater intention and awareness. This is what we mean by quantum entanglement in human consciousness. It isn't metaphorical, it's a genuine, measurable phenomenon that bridges physics and awareness. Einstein once called it spooky action at a distance because it violated the classical view of cause and effect. How could two particles influence each other instantly across vast distances? The math worked, the experiments proved it, and yet it shattered everything science thought it knew about separation. Now we're beginning to understand that this same principle applies to consciousness itself. The mind is not an isolated system locked inside a skull. It's part of a unified quantum field of awareness that extends beyond the body, beyond the limits of time and space. Synchronicity, the strange, meaningful coincidences that seem to guide our lives, is not random. It's entangled consciousness interacting with the fabric of reality. When you think of someone moments before they call, that isn't coincidence. It's resonance two consciousness fields aligning momentarily in the same vibrational band. When you walk into a room and instantly feel the mood without a word being spoken, that's not vague intuition. It's your neural field reading electromagnetic data emitted by the emotional states of others. And when you dream something that comes true days later, it isn't prophecy. It's your consciousness momentarily stepping outside of linear time, perceiving from a non-local level where past, present, and future coexist. You are not separate from the universe you observe. You're woven into it, part of its continuous living field. Your thoughts produce measurable electromagnetic patterns. Your emotions emit frequencies that alter both your biology and the surrounding environment. Your attention acts like quantum observation. It collapses infinite potential into one specific manifestation. Every act of focus is an act of creation. This is why traditional positive thinking or basic affirmations so often fail. People try to command reality with words while their deeper subconscious frequencies send contradictory signals. You might say, "I am abundant," but your nervous system still broadcasts fear and scarcity. You might visualize love, yet your heart energy pulses with unhealed grief or distrust. Reality doesn't respond to language, it responds to coherence. Synchronicity is not mystical luck. It's reality's feedback mechanism. When your inner state, thoughts, emotions, beliefs aligns into harmony, reality responds with flow. You see the right people appear at the perfect moment. Opportunities unfold effortlessly. You feel guided, supported, and connected to something larger. But when inner dissonance dominates, when conscious intentions battle subconscious programs, life mirrors that confusion. Delays, mischances, and repeating patterns arise not as punishment, but as perfect reflections of internal discord. This recognition changes everything. You are not a victim of circumstance, nor a puppet of fate. You are a conscious participant in a responsive universe. Every moment, your energy field collapses probabilities into experience. Every emotion and belief you hold acts as a tuning fork, calling reality to resonate with it. When you see recurring numbers, perfect timing, or improbable coincidences, the universe isn't teasing you, it's confirming your signal. It's saying, yes, this is how creation works. Yes, you are connected. Keep paying attention. The question is no longer whether synchronicity is real. The question is whether you are ready to take responsibility for your broadcast. Once you truly understand that consciousness shapes experience, you can't unknow it. You can't retreat into victimhood. You can't keep blaming chance, destiny, or other people. You must become the frequency you wish to experience. But why do so few people reach that level of flow? Why do some seem to live in effortless synchronicity while others move through chaos and struggle? Because most people transmit noise instead of signal. Imagine trying to tune a radio to a single frequency, but the dial sits between stations. You hear fragments, music, voices, static all overlapping. That's how most human energy fields operate. Incoherent, contradictory, cluttered. Consciously, you may declare, "I want abundance." Subconsciously, you're broadcasting, "Money is hard, I'm undeserving." Wealth means losing connection. You might crave love, but your body's still stuck in fight or flight, expecting rejection. You long for transformation, yet your biochemistry is addicted to familiar emotions like worry, anger, or self-doubt. The field doesn't judge these vibrations, it mirrors them precisely. A chaotic frequency manifests chaotic experiences, false starts, mixed signals, synchronicities that start strong, then fade. You glimpse a repeating number sequence, feel hopeful, then watch nothing change. You meet someone magnetic, but it falls apart. You assume the universe withdrew its favor. In truth, you simply didn't hold a coherent signal long enough for reality to stabilize around it. This realization feels uncomfortable because it dissolves excuses. It asks you to look inward, to confront how your emotions, habits, and stories sculpt the world you inhabit. Many people resist that responsibility because their identities are built around pain and limitation. They say, "I'm unlucky. I'm the type nothing ever works for." These aren't harmless phrases, they're vibrational programs. Every repetition tunes your energetic receiver to scarcity. And reality, ever neutral, says, "Understood." It delivers matching evidence. Another rejection, another closed door, another cycle of disappointment. Not as punishment, but as proof that the signal was heard. The beauty is, nothing about you is broken. You're not cursed, blocked, or unworthy. You're simply mistuned. And tuning is a skill, not a miracle. You can learn to shift frequency the same way a musician learns to hear pitch. Every spiritual tradition hints at this truth. Buddhism calls it presence, Christianity calls it faith, Sufism calls it remembrance, quantum physics calls it coherence. All point to the same practice: become the vibration of your desired reality. This doesn't mean mentally forcing positive thoughts while your body trembles in anxiety. It means aligning your entire system, mind, heart, and nervous system into the energy of what you want to experience. Feel safety until it becomes your baseline. Cultivate gratitude until abundance feels normal. Love until connection feels inevitable. When you achieve this state of coherence, synchronicities don't just increase, they become constant, unmistakable. The universe mirrors your alignment with mathematical precision. The right book literally falls into your hands. The email arrives at the perfect moment. You think of a solution and an opportunity materializes hours later. Doubt dissolves, replaced by awe. You stop chasing signs, they come to you naturally. You stop wondering what's next, because the path unfolds like illuminated stepping stones. You stop fearing wrong choices, because feedback from reality becomes immediate and unmistakable. This is what Dr. Joe Dispenza means when he says, your personality creates your personal reality. Your habitual thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are your signal. Change the signal, and the hologram of your life rearranges itself accordingly. A different reality requires a different frequency, which requires becoming a different person. Transformation isn't about faking positivity. It's about rewriting your energetic architecture. New mental patterns, new emotional chemistry, new beliefs, a nervous system grounded in safety and openness. When that internal upgrade happens, the outer world cannot help but follow. And the good news, you don't need perfection. You don't need to delete every old belief before life responds. You only need to become coherent enough that your signal outweighs your noise. The universe is extraordinarily responsive. Even the smallest sincere shift creates a ripple that reality amplifies. Every synchronistic number, every perfect meeting, every impossible alignment is existence whispering, "I hear you. Keep going." Most people give up too soon. They experiment for a few days, expect instant magic, then conclude it doesn't work. But the ones who live in continual synchronicity aren't luckier, they're consistent. They treat life as conversation. not transaction. They don't demand results. They cultivate resonance. They trust that the field always answers coherent signals, and it does. So pause and ask yourself honestly, what frequency are you emitting right now? Does it match the life you say you want? Because wherever there's a gap between your vibration and your vision, synchronicity flickers and fades into static. Close that gap, and reality begins to sing. Let's make this tangible. Understanding theory is pointless without practice. Here's how you can start decoding synchronicity and co-creating consciously with the quantum field. First, remember, synchronicity speaks in symbols, not logic. It's not linear language, it's imagery, feeling, pattern. And those symbols are personal. A hawk flying overhead might mean freedom to you, but focus to someone else. The universe doesn't use a universal dictionary, it speaks the private language of your subconscious mind. That's why generic angel number meanings rarely satisfy. Someone might tell you that 444 means angels are near, but to you it might recall a childhood address, a lost friend's birthday, or a repeating dream. Synchronicity uses what's meaningful to you. Begin keeping a synchronicity journal. Each time something unusual happens, a repeated number, a song lyric, an encounter, record it. But also note what you were thinking or feeling just before. Were you anxious or peaceful, doubting or trusting, making a decision? Every synchronicity is feedback from the field about your current state. Over time, you'll start noticing patterns. Maybe every time you're about to expand beyond comfort, you see feathers. Maybe every time you align with love, you see butterflies. The symbols are consistent, and once you decode them, you no longer need external interpretation. You become fluent in the language of your own reality. To deepen coherence, engage your body. Your thoughts may shift quickly, but your nervous system holds the past. Breathe consciously, slow your heart rate. Practice gratitude until your physiology relaxes. When your body feels safe, your frequency stabilizes. Then engage emotion, the true generator of energy. Thought is directive, but feeling is magnetic. The field doesn't respond to words like success or abundance. It responds to the felt vibration of safety, joy, and love. Imagine your desired reality not as fantasy, but as emotional state. What would peace feel like in your body? What would love sound like in your breath? Hold that emotion for 60 seconds without interruption. That's coherence. Do it repeatedly until it becomes familiar. Reality begins reorganizing itself around that signal. As coherence builds, the external world starts mirroring your inner evolution faster. You'll notice serendipities clustering together. The people you need appear. Synchronicities stop feeling random. They become the pulse of your dialogue with existence. When dissonance reappears, as it inevitably will, don't despair. Treat it as calibration feedback. The field is showing you what's still misaligned, not punishing you. Adjust gently. Return to the feeling of coherence. Over time, you'll realize that life isn't happening to you, it's happening through you, with you, as you. You and the universe are participants in the same quantum dance. That's the essence of quantum entanglement within consciousness. Everything is connected in a living web of awareness. Separation is illusion. Every thought ripples through the field, every heart movement influences the collective energy, every intention reshapes the possibilities that can unfold. When you grasp this, not intellectually but experientially, you move from superstition to participation. You stop waiting for signs and start collaborating with them. You stop chasing destiny and start generating it. And then something extraordinary happens. The more coherent your energy becomes, the more benevolent reality feels. The field begins to anticipate you. You think of a question, and an answer appears in the next conversation. You wonder about a change, and the opportunity presents itself. Life becomes a mirror, so precise it feels divine. This isn't magic in the childish sense. It's the natural law of resonance in a conscious universe. Energy seeks harmony. When your frequency is clear, everything matching that clarity gravitates toward you. In the end, synchronicity is not a reward system, it's communication. It's the universe saying, I'm listening, you are part of me, let's co-create. So the next time you see that repeating number, the next time you feel impossible timing aligning in your favor, pause. Feel gratitude. Recognize the physics beneath the mystery. You're not separate from what's unfolding. You are its conscious participant, its signal, its song. Take a moment and really consider this. What's one synchronicity you've experienced that you've been brushing aside, rationalizing, or quietly ignoring because it felt too weird or too impossible to be real? Maybe you kept seeing the same number on clocks, receipts, and street signs. Maybe a song started playing at the exact moment you were thinking about someone. Maybe you bumped into a person in the most unlikely place just after thinking about needing help with something they happen to be an expert in. If you were watching someone else's life as a movie, you'd recognize those moments as meaningful. But because it's your life, you probably shrugged and said, "What a coincidence," then moved on. Sometimes the first real act of honoring synchronicity is simply naming it, writing it down, saying, "I see you." Acknowledging it publicly, even if just in a journal or a comment section, is like opening a door. You're telling reality, "I'm paying attention now." What most people don't realize is that the act of documenting synchronicities, of consciously tracking them, begins to change your relationship with reality itself. You're not just cataloging strange moments. You're training your awareness. You're teaching your consciousness to become more observant, more receptive, more attuned to the subtle language that existence has been speaking to you all along. It's immersion. Just like learning a foreign language by living in a country where it's spoken. At first, everything sounds like noise. You catch a word here and there, a phrase, a tone that feels familiar. Eventually, with repetition and openness, those fragments turn into sentences. Those sentences become conversations. Synchronicity works the same way. At first, you notice the occasional weird alignment. Then you start to see patterns. Then you begin to understand that those patterns aren't random. They're responses. They're meaningful echoes between your inner world and outer events. Over time, this practice reveals startling consistency. You realize that every time a certain bird appears, maybe a hawk circling overhead or a small sparrow landing near you, you're wrestling internally with a choice about freedom versus safety. You notice that particular number sequences show up on your phone, your receipts, license plates, whenever you're on the verge of a breakthrough but secretly doubting yourself. You hear specific songs at moments when you need to hear those lyrics, as if the universe is underlining a message you've been resisting. These are not accidents. They form your personal symbolic alphabet. This is the language your higher consciousness uses to speak with your everyday mind. This is why copying someone else's interpretation of a symbol rarely satisfies you. You can Google what 777 or white feathers mean, and you'll get generic responses. But your symbols are wired to your history, your memories, your associations. That stranger's blog post doesn't hold your emotional imprint, you do. So the first practice is simple but powerful. Start a synchronicity journal, not just a log of "I saw 1111 again," but a living record of what's happening in you when the sign appears. What were you thinking in the moments before? What emotion were you feeling? Hope, fear, confusion, excitement? What decision or question has been quietly looping in the background of your mind? Synchronicity isn't a random visitation, it's a conversation. The more clearly you document both sides, the symbol and your state, the faster you learn to read the language. Over weeks and months, themes will emerge. Certain symbols will appear with certain thoughts or emotions so consistently that you can no longer dismiss them. You start realizing, oh, every time I'm about to sabotage something good, I see this exact sequence. Every time I'm actually on the right path, this animal shows up somewhere. Every time I'm meant to let go of control, that same phrase appears in different places. At that point, you no longer need external validation. You become fluent in the way reality speaks directly to you. The second practice is non-negotiable if you want to live in synchronistic flow. Elevate your emotional frequency. You can write, analyze, journal, think and philosophize endlessly. But if you stay locked in fear, resentment, cynicism or scarcity, your energy field is broadcasting static. The universe doesn't respond to the intellectual content of your thoughts. It responds to the frequency of your emotional state. If you want flow in your life, you must learn to generate flow emotions. Gratitude, appreciation, peace, curiosity, trust, soft joy. Not as a performance, not as fake positivity glued over genuine pain, but as real embodied states that your nervous system actually feels. How do you reach those states? There is no single correct path. There are many portals. For some people it's stillness, meditation, breathwork, gentle body scans, moments of silence. For others it's movement, dance, yoga, walking in nature, stretching, shaking off tension. Some access higher emotions through service, doing something kind for another being, or through creative expression. Painting, writing, singing, playing music. The method is less important than its effect. What matters is this: does it drop you out of compulsive mental noise and into a live, grounded presence in your body? Does it shift your state from tight, contracted survival mode to something more open, warm and spacious? Because here's a pivotal insight. Synchronicity doesn't live in later or someday. It doesn't exist in the mental reruns of yesterday or in imagined future catastrophes. Synchronicity lives only in the now. When you're replaying old conversations, fantasizing revenge, or spiraling through what-if scenarios, you're not truly here. You're mentally time-traveling. In those moments, reality is absolutely sending you signals, but you're unavailable to receive them. You're busy inside your own simulations. But when you're present, really present, synchronicities become impossible to miss. You suddenly feel an urge to take a different route home than usual. There's no logical reason, but you listen. On that route, you pass a cafe where you run into someone who offers precisely the opportunity or insight you needed. You feel a nudge to check your emails or messages at a very particular moment. You follow it. There it is. The response you've been waiting for, arriving at the exact minute you finally softened enough to receive it. You think of a person you haven't spoken to in months, and within an hour, your phone lights up with their name. You call this weird or creepy or fun, but at a deeper level it's resonance. You and that person were already connected in the field. Your awareness simply synced up with the existing link. This isn't fortune. This is coherence. Your inner state and the field around you are synchronized. Let's go deeper into emotional frequency. Your emotions are not just vague, private experiences. They're electromagnetic broadcasts. They literally sculpt the quantum field around you. Research on heart coherence shows that your heart generates the strongest electromagnetic field in your body, far stronger than the brain's. This field extends several feet, sometimes even more, beyond your physical form. Other people feel this. You've felt it too. You've met someone whose presence instantly soothed you and someone else whose presence instantly agitated you before either of you said a word. That isn't magic. That's physics interacting with biology. When you sustain emotions like appreciation, compassion, joy, and love, your heart's electromagnetic field becomes coherent. It shifts from chaotic patterns to smooth, ordered waves. That coherence doesn't stay trapped inside your chest. It radiates outward into the space around you, interacting with the larger field we all exist within. When your emotional frequency is high and coherent, you become easier for reality to read. Your signal is clear. You're no longer sending out 1,000 mixed messages. And because the quantum field responds to clarity, synchronistic events start gravitating toward you. Opportunities, people, ideas, and resources that match your broadcast begin to cluster in your experience. But the key isn't to fake these emotions. You can't tape gratitude over resentment and call it coherence. You can't chant affirmations while your body is still braced for danger and call it alignment. That kind of spiritual performance creates more internal split, not less. Real transformation means gradually shifting your baseline emotional set point, where your system naturally lives most of the time. Right now, for many people, that baseline is stress. Their nervous system has been conditioned to equate tension with normal. Relaxation feels suspicious. Joy feels unstable. To live in synchronistic flow, you're retraining your entire system to adopt a new normal one, where feeling relatively safe, resourced, and open is no longer rare, but ordinary. That doesn't mean you never feel fear or sadness. It means those states stop being home base. They become weather passing through, not your permanent address. This takes repetition, practice, gentleness, You gradually introduce your body to elevated emotions in small, digestible doses. You allow yourself 10 seconds of real gratitude, then 30, then a minute. Over weeks and months, your biology begins to adjust. Coherence becomes easier to access, then easier to maintain. Eventually, it begins to feel like your default. What we've explored so far, journaling synchronicity, decoding symbols, elevating emotional frequency, is one thread in a much larger tapestry. The architecture of conscious reality creation. Your electromagnetic field is not a metaphor, it's the actual interface through which you interact with the quantum fabric of existence. If you feel drawn to go deeper into all of this, imagine a roadmap that walks you through the primary frequencies that govern your experience. Fear, trust, love, creativity, embodiment, expression, and more, and trains you to move from survival static into clear, stable coherence. That's the essence of a path of consciousness mastery, shifting from someone chasing external signs to someone who is the broadcast those signs respond to. Now let's move into the third practice, recognizing relationships as mirrors. Every person in your life is reflecting something about your inner world. Every dynamic, every repeating pattern, every conflict that won't seem to resolve, these are not just about them. They're reflections of frequency. If you consistently attract emotionally unavailable partners, it's tempting to say, all the good ones are taken, or I just have terrible luck. But synchronicity invites a more honest question. Where am I emotionally unavailable to myself? Maybe you dismiss your own needs to avoid conflict. Maybe you don't sit with your emotions long enough to understand them. Maybe you abandon your desires the moment someone else disapproves. That internal unavailability broadcasts a signal, and you meet it in the form of people who mirror it. If you repeatedly experience betrayal, reality might be asking, where are you betraying yourself? Where are you saying yes when your whole being screams no? Where do you stay silent when your truth wants to speak? Where do you sacrifice your integrity to preserve a false peace? This is not about blame, it's about power. The moment you stop seeing your relationships as random and start seeing them as mirrors, you take back creative authority. You're no longer just reacting to other people's behavior, you're learning from it. Synchronicity is brutally honest. It will continue repeating the same theme until the lesson lands, not because the universe is cruel, but because it's precise. It keeps reflecting the same imbalance so you can finally see it, feel it, and choose differently. Recognizing relationships as mirrors does not mean staying in toxic environments to learn more lessons. It does not mean excusing cruelty, manipulation, or abuse. Boundaries and self-respect are expressions of coherent frequency. Seeing the mirror simply means acknowledging that the external dynamic is pointing to something internal you can heal, integrate, or strengthen. Once you genuinely do that inner work, one of two things happens. Either the relationship transforms because your energy no longer supports the old pattern, or it naturally dissolves because its teaching function is complete. Both outcomes are synchronistic guidance steering you toward greater alignment. There's something else profound here. The people who show up in your life at just the right time, the ones whose presence, words, or opportunities seem impossibly aligned with your needs, these aren't random visitors, they're vibrational matches. You called them in, not consciously perhaps, but through the clarity of your heart's broadcast. When you're clear, you meet clarity. When you're ready, you meet teachers, allies, collaborators, lovers and friends who reflect that readiness. They are living evidence that your frequency is coherent enough to draw in what you've been asking for. Now for the fourth practice, making decisions from alignment rather than logic alone. This is where many people unconsciously block synchronicity. They receive a clear signal, a repeating number, a strong intuitive nudge, a chance encounter that lights up their whole being, and then they talk themselves out of acting on it. But it doesn't make sense. But it's not practical. But what if I fail? What will people think? And so they choose what feels safe and familiar instead. They choose the job that drains them but looks good on paper. They stay in the relationship that stifles them because it's easier than leaving. They ignore the opportunity that lights them up because it doesn't match their plan. Logic operates within the boundaries of what you already know. Past experiences, cultural conditioning, stories passed down by family, fear-based risk assessments. Logic is useful, it keeps you from walking into traffic, but it's not designed to lead you into the unknown, into possibilities you haven't yet experienced. Alignment, on the other hand, is guidance from a wider vantage point. It's the felt sense that something is right for you before you can justify it with reasons. It often appears as a quiet but persistent pull, a soft inner yes that doesn't go away even when you try to ignore it. When synchronicity nudges you, a door opens unexpectedly, someone invites you somewhere, a message arrives at the perfect time. Alignment is the inner resonance that says, this. You may still feel fear. That's normal. But beneath the fear, there's a sense of expansion, of aliveness, of something in you waking up. The more you honor that resonance by acting on it, even in small ways, the stronger the signal becomes. You build trust with yourself and with the field. Reality learns, through your choices, that when it sends you guidance, you'll follow it. So it begins sending clearer, bolder, more frequent synchronicities. If you repeatedly ignore or rationalize away these impulses, the signal doesn't disappear as punishment, it simply becomes softer. You're teaching reality that you're not ready to move with that level of guidance yet. So the feedback matches your readiness. Aligned action is often not the safe choice by traditional standards. It may not be the most socially acceptable, the most predictable, or the one that others understand. Yet it's the choice that brings you into deeper coherence with yourself. It's the decision that aligns your inner truth with your outer path. Over time, making choices from alignment rather than fear restructures your entire life. You look back and see a chain of irrational decisions that somehow wove a path more beautiful and meaningful than anything your logical mind could have engineered. That's synchronistic living, not a life free of challenge, but a life where even the challenges feel purposeful, where signs, symbols, and encounters continually affirm that you are exactly where you need to be. So step back and ask yourself gently, what signs have I been dismissing? Where have I felt clear inner guidance but overridden it with logic or fear? What emotions do I rehearse daily, and do they match the reality I say I want? What patterns are my relationships reflecting back to me? You don't need to figure everything out today. You don't need to become perfectly coherent overnight. You only need to begin by honoring one synchronicity instead of dismissing it, by choosing one aligned action over a fearful compromise, by shifting your emotional state a little closer to gratitude than yesterday. Reality is always listening. It's always responding. It's always speaking in symbols, patterns, and timing. When you tune in, when you become curious instead of cynical, when you treat life like a conversation rather than a series of random events, you discover that synchronicity was never rare. Aligned action operates from a vastly different intelligence, one that transcends logic and taps into a deep connection with the quantum field, which holds access to information far beyond the reach of our conscious awareness. When you feel a sudden pull towards something that doesn't quite make sense, you're receiving information from this quantum field. This information is about probabilities and potentials that your rational mind cannot calculate. Your higher consciousness, which exists beyond the linear constraints of time, can perceive outcomes and trajectories that your everyday mind cannot see. What you're experiencing in those moments of synchronicity is guidance, coming from a larger view of reality than your logic can comprehend. This guidance isn't random, and it isn't happenstance. It is the communication from a higher intelligence, the quantum field itself, about the direction you should take. I have seen many people ignore synchronicities, dismissing them as coincidences simply because they couldn't rationally justify them. Months or even years later, those same people would discover that the path they chose logically, without the guidance of those synchronicities, led to stagnation, while the path that originally called to them would have led them exactly to what they needed. And then I've seen others who, despite the irrationality of the pull, decided to trust in the synchronicities they were experiencing. They followed these signs, allowing them to lead the way, and their lives transformed in ways they could never have predicted or planned for. The key here is to learn to distinguish between aligned impulses and fear-based reactions. Aligned impulses feel expansive. Even when they're scary, they create a sense of rightness deep within you. There's a quiet knowing beneath the surface anxiety, an understanding that the impulse is leading you somewhere important. On the other hand, fear-based reactions feel contracting and desperate. They are driven by avoidance, not attraction. Learning this discernment is crucial in developing synchronicity fluency. The more you practice listening to your inner guidance and recognizing the difference between fear-driven responses and aligned impulses, the clearer the distinction becomes. Now, the fifth practice is to release attachment to outcomes. This paradox is a game changer, and it's where many people get stuck. You cannot force synchronicity to happen. You cannot demand specific signs, nor can you manipulate reality into delivering your personal preferences. The moment you require synchronicity to prove something to you, you collapse the frequency. You shift from a space of trust into a space of control, and control opposes flow. Synchronicity emerges in the space of surrender, not passive resignation, but active surrender. This means that you're doing your part, maintaining your frequency, taking inspired action, and staying in alignment with your truth. However, you're not attached to how things unfold. You plant the seeds, you water them, and then you trust the process to complete itself. That trust, that surrender, is the most powerful frequency you can embody. It signals to reality, I know you support me, I'm safe, I'm ready. When reality senses that you are not grasping, forcing, or second-guessing, it will begin to deliver in ways that exceed your comprehension. Not because you manipulated it, but because you became a clear channel for its energy to flow through you. So now, I want you to think about the last synchronicity you experienced. The one you brushed off or rationalized away, the one you considered too insignificant to matter. Return to that moment mentally. What was it trying to communicate to you? What frequency were you embodying when that synchronicity appeared? And what might have unfolded if you had followed that thread? I promise you, it wasn't random. That synchronicity was an invitation to trust, to expand into a larger version of yourself, and to collaborate with a reality that's more conscious, more responsive, and more intelligent than traditional worldviews acknowledge. The question is not whether reality is listening, it is. It always has been. The real question is, are you listening? Here's something important to understand about your journey into synchronicity. It's not linear, it's spiral. There will be periods when synchronicities flood your awareness. You'll feel deeply connected to the field, and guidance will feel constant and clear. Then, there will be times when the signal seems to fade. Synchronicities will become rare, and you'll wonder if you've lost the connection altogether. These quiet periods are not punishment. They are integration periods. Reality isn't withdrawing from you. Instead, you're being invited to embody what you've learned at a deeper level. The universe is calling you to trust without constant external validation, to hold your frequency without needing immediate confirmation. These are the moments that forge true mastery. You learn to hold your coherence, not because you're receiving constant feedback, but because you've internalized the truth about how reality operates. And here's what happens when you persist through these quiet integration phases. When synchronicities return, and they always do, they come back stronger, clearer, and more profound than before. This is because you're being upgraded. You're being trained to handle increasingly sophisticated levels of communication with the field. It's like moving from basic vocabulary to complex philosophical discussions in a new language. The quiet periods are essential for this evolution. They are preparing you for a deeper level of awareness, one that will allow you to engage with reality in ways that go beyond surface-level experiences. Now, let's pause and engage with this practice. Take a deep breath, and as you reflect on your current journey, write these exact words in the comments section. I am tuned in to reality's frequency. Don't just type it casually. Let it resonate deeply within you as you write it. Let this declaration be an energetic signature that you're sending into the quantum field. Let it serve as a conscious interruption of any old patterns that say synchronicity isn't real. Every time you acknowledge the language of synchronicity, every time you consciously engage with it, you strengthen the signal. You're telling reality, I'm listening, I'm present, I'm ready to receive. And that's the beginning of something extraordinary. Let's now integrate everything we've covered. Synchronicity is not coincidence. It's not random. It's not luck. It's a quantum feedback mechanism, a symbolic language that serves as an ongoing dialogue between your consciousness and the field of infinite potential. Carl Jung discovered it. Quantum physics validated it. And your life has been demonstrating it continuously, whether you've been consciously aware of it or not. The numbers, the symbols, the perfect timing, the people who appear exactly when you need them, none of it is random. It's all signals. And the signals continuously respond to your frequency. When you're in alignment, when your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs harmonize, synchronicities flow effortlessly and undeniably. But when you're in chaos, fear, and resistance, the signal gets drowned in noise, and you might convince yourself that reality is no longer communicating with you. But the truth is that reality is always communicating. The problem is that you might not be tuned in. The practice, then, is to stay tuned in, to align with the signals, to interpret them accurately, and to live in harmony with the field. That's the transformation from being a passive observer of life to being an active creator of your reality. Your life isn't happening to you, it's happening with you, in collaboration with the universe. When you learn how to read the language of synchronicity, you become a conscious co-creator of your life. You stop waiting for things to happen, and instead, you begin shaping them with intention. This is where true power lies, understanding that you are part of something much greater than yourself, that the universe is an interactive, conscious field, and that you have the ability to engage with it in ways that create extraordinary results. Synchronicity doesn't always feel comfortable, but it's always moving you toward growth. It pushes you to evolve, to expand, to trust in the unknown, and to become a better version of yourself. When you stop fighting it, when you stop dismissing it, when you start listening to the signs, you begin to align with your highest potential. At this level of awareness, you're no longer sitting around asking whether synchronicity is real. You're living inside it. It's not a rare event that occasionally interrupts your normal life. It becomes the backdrop of your reality, the connective tissue between your inner world and everything that meets you on the outside. Life starts to feel like an ongoing conversation. You think, feel, act, and reality replies in symbols, timing, and uncanny alignments. But there's a stage beyond that, a fifth layer of this journey that most people never even realize exists. You can think of it as transparent co-creation. At this stage, the line between you and the universe begins to soften and then dissolve. You stop relating to synchronicity as messages being sent from some external intelligence to a separate you who receives them. Instead, you begin to recognize something radically different. You are the field. You're not just in it. You are an expression of it, a localized point of consciousness through which the field is perceiving, creating, and learning about itself. The synchronicities you experience aren't merely messages addressed to you. They are reality reflecting its own intelligence back to itself through your awareness. You are both the listener and the speaker, both the witness and the creator. The universe is not whispering to you from afar. It is whispering as you, through your mind, your body, your intuitions, and the events that seem to swirl around your life. At this level, synchronicity becomes less about seeing signs and more about being one. You turn into a walking synchronicity for others. Your presence, your timing, the things you say without planning, these become precisely the impossible coincidences that wake someone else up, redirect their life, or confirm what their soul already knows. You might notice that you accidentally say the one sentence someone needed to hear. You happen to show up at the exact moment someone was on the verge of giving up. You send a message without knowing why, and the person on the other side bursts into tears because you reached out at the only time they could have received it. In those moments, you're no longer only reading the language of reality, you're speaking it. You're not just noticing patterns, you're participating in writing them. Your coherence, your alignment, your emotional clarity become part of the mechanism by which the universe organizes experiences for others. You become a conscious node in a much larger network of intelligence. This might sound abstract, but it's actually the natural evolution of synchronistic awareness. You don't have to force yourself into it. You don't pretend to be one with the field. You simply commit to the practice's clarity, presence, emotional coherence, aligned action, and this deeper recognition emerges on its own. Each stage prepares your nervous system, your beliefs, and your perception for the next. You're not climbing a spiritual ladder out of desperation. You're growing roots into a more authentic way of being. Every stage has its own gifts, and every stage has its own challenges. One of the biggest obstacles that stops people from moving beyond the early stages is something rarely talked about: the shadow side of synchronicity. Most people want synchronicity to always feel good. They want repeating numbers that confirm their manifestations are on the way. They want magical alignments that deliver exactly what they've been vision boarding. They want the universe to appear like a cosmic vending machine. Put in high vibes, get out rewards. But if you truly want mastery of this language, you need to understand the full spectrum. Synchronicity doesn't just show up to validate you, it shows up to evolve you. And evolution is not always comfortable. Sometimes synchronicity appears as a warning, as repeated obstacles that block you from going further down a path that isn't truly aligned with your deeper self. As relationships that fall apart at the exact moment you thought you needed them most. As opportunities that crumble so that something more authentic can take root. It can look like sudden endings, closed doors, and strange patterns of disruption. You might experience the same type of cancellation or breakdown over and over again. Your first response is usually confusion, then frustration, then self-doubt. Why is this happening to me? Why does the universe keep blocking me? Why does nothing ever work out? But synchronicity is not trying to humiliate you. It's trying to get your attention. There may come a period where nearly every plan you make gets delayed, flights get cancelled, meetings are rescheduled at the last minute, people ghost you. Technology fails precisely when you need it to function. Your body suddenly demands rest through illness or fatigue. On the surface, it looks like sabotage. Look deeper. Ask, what frequency am I actually broadcasting as I push forward? You might realize you've been trying to force reality, driving your life with sheer willpower and control, rather than moving from inner alignment. You might notice that underneath your big, bold actions lay fear, scarcity, or the need to prove something. In that case, the delays aren't punishment. They're protection. They're the field preventing you from concretizing misaligned outcomes. The blockage is really grace in disguise, giving you time to recalibrate, time to get coherent, time to feel what's actually true for you instead of bulldozing your way through. Once you stop fighting these patterns and start asking, what are you trying to show me? Everything changes. Doors that used to slam in your face stop being necessary. You adjust before reality has to shout. The external world becomes less harsh because your internal world becomes more honest. Some of the most powerful guidance you'll ever receive will not flatter your ego. It will dismantle it. It will strip away illusions, unstable identities, and relationships built on half-truths. It may feel like your life is coming apart, but in retrospect, you'll see that synchronicity was clearing space, removing what could never have sustained your expansion, so you could finally align with what's real. The challenge is to recognize these dismantling synchronicities as guidance rather than as proof that you're doomed or abandoned. It takes courage to see that what you're losing may not be a loss at all, but a reorientation. It requires a kind of surrender that goes beyond the "I surrender so I can get what I want" mentality. It asks you to trust that being denied something is sometimes the most loving act reality can perform on your behalf. Mature, synchronistic awareness understands this. Sometimes the greatest gift is not getting what you thought you wanted, so you can receive what you truly need. To work with synchronicity at this level, it helps to distinguish between different types of signals. Not all synchronicities mean the same thing. When you lump them all into one bucket, you can easily misread your guidance and act in ways that generate confusion. You can think of three broad categories: confirmation, course correction, and breakthrough. The first type is confirmation synchronicity. This is reality affirming, yes, this way. You've been thinking about making a change, starting a new project, leaving a job, moving, committing to a relationship, shifting your lifestyle. As you hold this possibility in your awareness, reality starts reflecting it back to you in a way that feels unmistakably supportive. You might hear a podcast where the host describes your exact situation and the very decision you're weighing. A friend spontaneously brings up the topic you've been silently obsessing over. A book literally falls off a shelf, open to a page that speaks with eerie specificity to your dilemma. Number sequences appear, phrases repeat, and encounters line up in ways that feel expansive rather than tight. The key signatures of confirmation synchronicity are expansion and resonance. You feel a subtle inner yes, not from your ego's hunger, but from a deeper, quieter place. Your body might feel lighter, your chest more open, your breath freer. There may still be fear, but beneath it there is a sense of inner alignment. These are your green lights. The message is, keep going, take the step, trust the direction. The second type is course correction synchronicity. These are the signals most likely to be misunderstood. When you're heading in a direction that isn't aligned with your deeper self, the field often starts to present friction. Things repeatedly don't work out. Resources don't arrive. The timing never quite settles. Everyone seems unavailable. You encounter bad luck over and over. Your conditioned response might be to push harder. You might tell yourself, this is just resistance. I need more discipline. I have to manifest harder. But often, what's actually happening is a series of yellow lights. Caution. Slow down. Look again. Course correction synchronicities feel contracting instead of expanding. You feel drained rather than energized, clenched rather than open. The same frustrating pattern repeats no matter how much effort you apply. In these moments, reality is often saying, not this way, not like this, not from this energy. The invitation is to pause, to stop forcing, to ask, what is this pattern trying to show me? Maybe the path itself is fine, but your approach is rooted in fear or control. Maybe the destination you're chasing is not truly yours, but inherited from other people's expectations. Maybe there is an easier route you're not seeing because you're fixated on only one option. These synchronicities are not red lights as much as they are caution signs. They want stillness, reflection, reattunement. The third type is breakthrough synchronicity. These are the big ones, the ones that leave you staring at the wall in awe, wondering how any of this is even possible. They often appear around major turning points in your life, right before or after a deep inner shift, a healing, a decision to completely change your trajectory, or a profound spiritual opening. During breakthrough synchronicities, multiple alignments converge at once. An old friend suddenly reappears with exactly the knowledge or connection you need. You overhear a conversation that answers a question you haven't voiced out loud. You come across a piece of information that retroactively explains years of experience. An unexpected opportunity arrives that feels like it was designed specifically for you. These moments can feel electrifying. Time bends. The usual rules seem suspended. You sense that something inside you is crossing a threshold, even if you can't articulate it yet. Reality feels hyper-responsive, like it's rearranging itself in real time to meet your emerging self. The appropriate response here is presence and surrender. Don't rush. Don't overanalyze. Don't panic and grab for control. Breathe. Notice. Let it land. These are liminal moments where who you've been and who you're becoming overlap. The more gently and openly you move through them, the more gracefully your next chapter can unfold. Learning to discern which type of synchronicity you're encountering changes everything. You stop treating every repeated number as a simple yes or no and start listening for tone, context, and felt sense. You realize that each type invites a different posture. Confirmation asks for trust and movement. Course correction asks for pause and reorientation. Breakthrough asks for full, awake presence and surrender. Misinterpret these signals and you'll likely push when you're meant to rest, hesitate when you're meant to leap, or downplay a pivotal moment as nothing special. This discernment doesn't arrive overnight. It develops with practice and with humility. You will misread signals sometimes. That's part of learning. Synchronicity is not a rigid code to crack. It's a living relationship to refine. Over time, as you track patterns and observe outcomes, your literacy becomes subtler, more sophisticated. You stop needing constant reassurance because your direct experience confirms again and again that this conversation with reality is real. It can be helpful to revisit these concepts more than once. When you encounter them in a relatively receptive state early in the day, when your mind hasn't been flooded with noise, you often notice layers you missed before. A phrase hits differently. A distinction that felt theoretical suddenly becomes obvious in the context of something that happened yesterday. Sharing these ideas with others also amplifies them in you. When you offer this understanding to someone who feels stuck, who keeps saying nothing ever works out for me, you're not only supporting them, you're anchoring the frequency more deeply inside yourself. You become a transmitter of coherence. You embody the very principle you're explaining. Remember, that's what transparent co-creation really looks like. You don't just talk about synchronicity, you become a living demonstration of it. Your words, timing, and presence ripple outward, triggering synchronicities in other people's lives, which in turn reflect back to you in amplified ways. When enough individuals choose this path, when enough people start journaling their patterns, elevating their emotional frequency, reading relationships as mirrors, and making decisions from alignment instead of fear, the collective field begins to shift. The background frequency of humanity changes. Coherence increases. The veil between unconscious creation and conscious creation thins. Synchronicity becomes more accessible to more people, not as a strange phenomenon reserved for the spiritual, but as a natural consequence of more coherent, present, awake human beings moving through the world. This is bigger than personal manifestation. It's about collective awakening. It's about humans remembering that they are not powerless fragments tossed around by random forces, but conscious co-creators embedded in a responsive field. It's about evolving from survival consciousness, where life is reduced to fear, scarcity, and control, into creative consciousness, where life is experienced as collaboration, exploration, and expression. And it starts in simple, intimate ways. One person decides to stop dismissing their synchronicities as just coincidence. Another person chooses to breathe through a trigger and ask what it's mirroring instead of projecting blame. Someone else decides to follow the quiet inner yes, even though it doesn't fully make sense on paper. Each of these small acts tunes their personal field slightly closer to coherence. Each coherent field contributes to a more coherent collective. And as the collective becomes more coherent, synchronicity becomes more visible, more frequent, more undeniable. So yes, you can follow channels, read books, watch videos, but more importantly, you can subscribe to the practice itself. You can commit to actually doing the things that shift your frequency, not just understanding them conceptually. Commit to the journal even if you only write one line a day. Commit to elevating your emotional state even if it's just one honest minute of gratitude at a time. Commit to seeing relationships as mirrors even when it would be easier to blame. Commit to making one aligned decision in the face of fear, just one at a time. Commit to releasing outcomes and trusting that the field is always responding, even when you can't see how yet. Transformation doesn't come from occasional fascination. It comes from consistent engagement. Not perfection, not high vibes only, but steady, sincere participation in the conversation reality is having with you. Before you leave this space, take a moment and tune in. If everything you've just read is like a field of frequencies, which one is calling to you the loudest? Not the outcome you wish for, not the thing you want to acquire, the frequency you're ready to embody more fully. Maybe it's trust, the willingness to lean into the unknown. Maybe it's flow, the state of moving with life instead of fighting it. Maybe it's coherence, alignment between what you think, feel, say, and do. Maybe it's surrender, releasing your grip on how things must unfold. Maybe it's love, freedom, courage, presence, clarity, devotion. Whatever word rises from your deepest knowing, let it surface. Name it silently, write it down, speak it aloud. That single word can act as an anchor, a tuning fork, a living intention. It isn't just something you wish to experience, it's something you're choosing to become. Let it be your quiet declaration to the field. This is the frequency I'm committing to. This is who I'm willing to be. And somewhere, out in that same responsive field, someone else will be sending out a similar signal, looking for a sign, a reflection, a word. Without even realizing it, you'll become part of their synchronicity, just as they become part of yours. This is the power of community, the power of connected energy. Every action you take, every word you speak, and every thought you broadcast is not just a solitary act. It ripples out into the universe, touching other people, creating a resonance that moves through the collective consciousness. When you comment, share your thoughts, or contribute to this space, you're participating in a shared frequency that echoes far beyond the screen. It reverberates into the lives of others who are part of this collective experience, helping them see something new or shift their perspective. The beauty of synchronicity lies in how it works, how something as simple as your words can trigger an internal shift in someone else. Imagine it. Someone scrolling through comments might read your words, and in that instant, something inside them will resonate. Your comment, your energy, your intention becomes a part of their journey, whether they consciously realize it or not. It's like you become the synchronicity they needed. You become the message, the mirror, and the sign they were waiting for. This is the heart of a conscious community. When we gather together, support each other's growth, and hold space for each other's evolution, we amplify the signal. It's a collaborative experience. We're not alone in this. There are others who are seeing what we're seeing, feeling what we're feeling, and awakening to what we are awakening to. By being part of this community, we reflect back to each other that we're not isolated in our experiences. We are creating a coherent frequency, a collective field where synchronicity becomes more accessible, more undeniable, and more normal. As we share our stories, our growth, and our insights, we collectively raise the vibration of this community, making it easier for everyone to tap into the frequency of synchronicity. This is why subscribing to this channel isn't just about consuming content. It's about staying connected to a frequency, a movement, a collective remembering of the deeper truths of existence. It's about being a part of this shared understanding of reality and contributing to the greater field of awareness that we are all co-creating. The more of us who live in alignment with synchronicity, the more it becomes a part of our everyday reality. The more we understand and trust the signs and messages that reality offers us, the more the universe responds. We're not just changing our own individual lives, we are altering the very fabric of what's possible for humanity. This journey into synchronicity, into conscious creation, is part of a much larger awakening, one that transcends the personal and ripples out into the collective. We're shifting from living as passive observers of life to active participants, co-creating with the universe. However, there is a deeper, darker side to synchronicity that I need to address, one that many spiritual teachers shy away from. While synchronicity can be an incredible tool for insight, growth, and connection, it also has a shadow side that's uncomfortable for many to confront. Sometimes, synchronicity comes as a warning. It manifests as repeating obstacles that force you to change direction, as relationships that fall apart to steer you back to your true path, or as doors slamming shut to guide you toward a path you hadn't yet seen. I've experienced this myself. There was a period when it seemed like everything I tried to do was blocked. Flights were cancelled, meetings were rescheduled, technology failed me at critical moments. At first, I was frustrated. I questioned why the universe was blocking my plans, but when I dug deeper, I realized that the universe wasn't blocking me, it was protecting me. The delays weren't punishment, they were a form of guidance. They were allowing me time to recalibrate, to shift my energy, and to realign with what was truly meant for me. The delays, the obstacles, the seemingly inconvenient synchronicities, they were all helping me release the need for control and forcing me to trust the process. Once I surrendered, once I let go of the desire to control every outcome, things shifted. The delays stopped, and what I began creating came from a place of alignment, not force. It came from trust, not desperation. The synchronistic blocks, while uncomfortable, were some of the most valuable lessons I've ever received. Synchronicity doesn't just show up to validate you, it shows up to evolve you. It isn't always about getting what you want when you want it. Sometimes it's about removing what no longer serves you, dismantling your old patterns, and making space for what's truly aligned with your highest good. This process of dismantling is often painful, and it can feel like everything is falling apart, but in truth, it's all clearing space for what's meant to come in. The challenge lies in recognizing these synchronicities for what they are, not punishments or tests, but invitations for growth and transformation. Now, let's explore the different types of synchronicity and how to recognize them. Not all synchronicities mean the same thing. Some are affirmations, others are course corrections, and some mark major breakthroughs. Understanding which type you're experiencing will help you navigate your journey with clarity and purpose. The first type is confirmation synchronicity. These synchronicities occur when you're on the right path. You're thinking about making a change or a decision, and suddenly everything points in the same direction. You hear a song that answers your unspoken question, someone mentions exactly what you've been contemplating, or you see a number that resonates with your situation. These synchronicities feel expansive and affirming. They're green lights. They tell you to trust yourself and keep going. The second type is course correction synchronicity. These can feel more frustrating because they often come in the form of obstacles. You're moving forward, and suddenly things start to fall apart. Plans are delayed, resources are unavailable, or things just don't seem to work out. These synchronicities can feel like resistance, but they're really guiding you toward a more aligned path. When you hit one of these, it's a signal to stop, reassess, and realign. These are yellow lights, caution signs urging you to pause and reflect on your next move. The third type is breakthrough synchronicity. These are the most intense and profound. They often come when you're on the verge of a major shift in consciousness. These synchronicities feel electric, destabilizing, and transformative. They might involve multiple synchronicities converging at once, or an event that seems to bend reality around you. These moments are pivotal. Pay attention. They mark a turning point where everything changes, and you're moving into a new phase of growth and understanding. Understanding which type of synchronicity you're experiencing allows you to respond in the most appropriate way. Confirmation synchronicities encourage you to trust and move forward. Course correction synchronicities invite you to pause, reflect, and adjust your direction. Breakthrough synchronicities call for surrender and presence. Stay with them, embrace the transformation, and trust the process. Finally, let's explore the concept of radical honesty when it comes to synchronicity. This involves being willing to receive the uncomfortable messages as well as the affirming ones. Synchronicity isn't just about receiving validation, it's also about evolution. It's about listening to the messages that challenge you, push you out of your comfort zone, and invite you to grow. The key to mastering synchronicity is to be honest with yourself about what's being reflected back to you. When you stop resisting and start embracing the full spectrum of synchronicity, you begin to unlock a deeper connection with reality. You stop seeing yourself as a passive observer and start recognizing yourself as an active participant in the co-creation of your life. You become aware that reality is always transmitting, and the question is not whether reality will respond, it always will. The question is, what frequency are you broadcasting? What are you tuning into? What are you co-creating? Synchronicity is a tool for radical transformation. It's a mechanism that helps you align with your highest potential, guiding you along the path of growth, healing, and enlightenment. As you embrace it and trust it, you'll begin to see your life transform in ways you never thought possible. The more you learn to read and understand the language of synchronicity, the more you will become the creator of your reality, shaping your life with intention, clarity, and purpose. In conclusion, the journey with synchronicity is not a linear one. It is a spiral, an ongoing process of learning, refining, and evolving. As you deepen your awareness and understanding of the messages that reality is sending you, you will begin to experience life not as something happening to you, but as something happening with you. You will become a conscious co-creator, working in harmony with the universe to manifest a reality that aligns with your deepest truth and highest potential.